Hello and welcome. I'm Adri Gregan, and I'm back for Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3. Today on the docket, we've got Episode 7, and last time, 2 weeks ago, sorry about that, a lot of life things have been happening, but last time was quite the interesting episode. Didn't quite go the way I was expecting to. There was a lot more Kirara than I thought, and a lot less Hakari. But I think it turned out pretty well, all things considered. I noticed that there's a lot of debate online whether the Kirara fight was longer than it needed to be, or whether it was as necessary as the time it ended up taking. And there were also people out there, myself included, who expected there to be a lot more Hakari fighting using his technique and things like that. Which I guess we got kind of in the prior episode with him like summoning the doors to attack Yuji. And we didn't really get that episode though, and it makes sense that we didn't because he didn't really need to. After all, Yuji was not exactly fighting back, was he? Instead, we got a one-sided slugfest, and Yuji basically being the shield hero, just or at least how the shield hero should be, tanking hits and holding out because it is really an endurance match over all else. It is being recognized by Hakari, and as a result, not only is this fight not about killing, it's not really about fighting at all, right? It's showing your mettle. It's showing Hakari that you are worth allying with him, especially in this death game. And speaking of death game, one thing that completely flew over my attention, so thank you all for pointing out in the comments, the fact that one of these mascot terminals of the culling game, if that's what you want to call them, I think they were called something in the comments or maybe even in the episodes prior, but I'm forgetting what they're called. So these culling game terminals, these culling terminals, they only should really show up for players, right? Participants in the culling game. And yet this one shows up here when we have nobody who is a clear participant, at least as far as we can tell. Either that assumption is not correct, or it means that there is a participant here. And if there is a participant here, that likely means that we've entered a territory. That's obviously none of our guys. So I wonder if the implication is that we're not quite done with the scene just yet. And Hakare and Kirara may not be enemies anymore. It seems like we've got them at least pretty solidly on our side at the time, for the time being. But there may be a little bit more drama to happen here because, yeah, this seems to imply that they are part of the culling game. And since this is the culling game arc, that would kind of make sense, especially with how powerful he seems to be. Though it doesn't seem like he would be somebody who would be like awakened or possessed, I guess, by Ghetto. Maybe he's just somebody whose powers were enhanced by him, or maybe not. Maybe he just wandered in here and he's been like entered into the game. I'm not entirely sure. I think we might get answers this episode, or we might just explore something else. We still have to check out what Angel is doing. I think the other person we need to go find is called. So maybe we'll do that, or maybe we'll drop by Tengen. Maybe there's a whole bunch of things that could happen, and all of them are actually really exciting. This Culling game has set up a really engaging arc with a lot of different moving parts, and our gang is split up in search for clues, and we're seeing each one play out, and each one, none of them have been disappointing so far, so I don't expect that to change anytime soon. No, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Kirara and talking about A, her fight, and B, her identity, I suppose. Both of those are worth talking about, but I've already done so fairly at length, especially in one of my live streams. I think it was the most recent one I posted now, unless you're watching this obviously in the future, in which case it's the one that I'm talking about Jujutsu Kaisen and how it weaves allegory into its power system. Go ahead if you want to check that one out. I talk quite at length about Kirara and her what she, he, they, what they represent within Jujutsu Kaisen. And there's also comments here that address it. So go ahead, check those out if you're interested. I'd much rather spend my time here going over the comment of the day, which is by some known. I realize I'm supposed to start up here so you can see, but you probably know who he is, especially if you're a regular here. Some known is a true comment paragraph warrior, and he's part of the IPPC, a proud member, and he's got quite a bit of thoughts here and quite a bit of interesting things, many of which actually affected that live stream I referenced before. A lot of the thoughts I had were drawn from what Some Known said. But the thing I wanted to talk about here, which I replied to a little bit in the comment here, but I wanted to bring this up actually in the video because I think this is worthy to take the majority of the pre-ep prep today. The first part of this comment that I kind of scrolled past, you can go ahead and check the episode out if you want to read the full comment. But some known is basically just talking about how there's two main people who watch JJK. There's the people who tend to analyze it and break it down and look for the deeper meanings and the analogies, the allegories that Gege weaves into a story, and there are the more casual fans, right? Those who just watch it for the enjoyment, who just enjoy the reactions, and probably aren't watching this pre-ep prep right now because they probably skipped to the timestamp that I've provided for you for the reaction. No shade against you guys, it just is what it is. Though I guess I can say shade if I want to because you're probably not watching this if you're just here for certain reactions. That is the first part of the comment and the pretext for what he mentions here, which is the most interesting part that I wanted to discuss in this episode. Now, basically, he's mentioning how JJK is a story that doesn't require you to read between the lines. However, your experience of it, your enjoyment of it, and the value you take from it are going to vary greatly depending on how introspective you are regarding the media you consume. Now, I largely agree with this. If you've watched my reactions to this show throughout the seasons, you will see a very consistent mention of how tight Gege's storytelling is and how he really doesn't explain a whole lot. Now, when it comes to fights, that completely changes, right? JJK is second almost only to JoJo's and how it and the memes it's created about the narrators going over things during the fights. But when it actually comes to dialogue between the characters, which is I think one of JJK's strongest points, Gege really likes to leave most things unsaid. To the point where oftentimes I find myself getting confused by what people are talking about, like within the story, and I often need commenters to clarify it basically for me. Sometimes even drawing stuff from the manga, which is a bit of a detraction. However, it more importantly ties into what I think is so unique and so compelling about JJK and Gege's storytelling here. Now, as Unknown says here, JJK requires a lot of exploring the themes and how the characters relate for them to reach its full potential, which a lot of people don't do because it's tiring, right? It takes a lot of effort, and a lot of people go to these stories for escapism. It's hard to escape when you're spending most of your time analyzing and trying to break things down. He does make an interesting comment here about how he loves stories for their themes, but can't really connect with the emotions of characters. So stories like One Piece are annoying to him. I can't really comment on that because I haven't seen One Piece yet, and I don't really plan to. It's just too long, regardless of how good it may be. This on its own is a really interesting thing that I want to quickly touch on before I go into the main meat of this prep. The idea that you can love a story for its themes while not really connecting with the emotions of characters. Because these two aren't mutually exclusive, right? You can have a lot of themes being developed throughout a story, and those themes don't necessarily require you to have a lot of empathy for the characters. Just take Jujutsu Kaisen, right? There's a lot of talking about the theme of the value of a life. Now, while that is a very emotional subject, and it definitely weighs on our characters emotionally, you don't have to be emotionally attached to these characters to appreciate and to understand the philosophical concepts that Gege is exploring through the story, right? Personally, I enjoy both of them. I connect with emotions of characters very easily. I am a highly empathetic person, and I also love stories for their themes. So we differ a little bit there. However, I appreciate that he's not passing judgment on either one, right? Because it's kind of ridiculous too. Why would you pass judgment on someone's tastes? If somebody doesn't care about stories themes but can connect with emotions of characters, that's great. That's a very valid way of enjoying things. If you're the opposite, you love themes but you can't connect with emotions, then whoop-de-doo. I'm not going to knock you down for not having a lot of inherent empathy. And that doesn't even mean you don't have a lot of inherent empathy, right? There's a very different thing between having empathy for real people and having empathy with fictional characters. Those two aren't necessarily linked, right? And it's foolish and kind of nonsensical to assume one based on the other. I guess what I'm trying to say is as long as you're engaging with the story and trying to take something out of it, then I think that's the best way to appreciate JJK as much as possible. As long as you are trying to engage with it in a way that is natural and beneficial to you, then that's all we can really ask for, right? There's no point trying to knock people down because they don't engage with the story a particular way. The only thing that I think is a shame is if you are not really trying to engage with the story at all, because then, yeah, it becomes that escapism and you don't really get a lot out of it into your real life, which I think is the most important part of watching anime. It's taking something back with you when you leave the show. Otherwise, as soon as you leave, you don't have anything and you just want to hop right back in, right? And before you know it, you're retracting away from real life. That is a thing that is all too common, unfortunately. It's something that I've fallen into in my younger years, but now I find this as an addendum, as a bonus to my life, right? Not as something to center my life around. He says, starting a YouTube channel and intending on doing it full time one day, which is literally centering yourself around anime, but it's not, right? Because that's the why I don't do my reactions. That's why I don't label them reactions. That's why I say they're live analyses, because I'm not trying to center my channel around anime. I'm centering my channel around the analysis of media, around the building out of literacy and of analytical thinking. It just so happens that anime is the best medium for me to do that. So I guess I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Maybe I should start scripting these, but where's the fun in that? So the main center point of Sumnone's comment here is an anecdote where he finds somebody who thought Yuta was really bland, but actually made solid points about it. He's a character with a tragic backstory whose power and philosophy revolves around love and friendship, learning to love and respect himself, with his arc ending with him becoming a confident badass, right? And that makes him sound incredibly basic as a protagonist, which he is in JJK Zero and, by extension, JJK proper. However, then Sumno notes how what makes Yuta work isn't his character itself, but his character in context of JJK. And I think this is a really important thing to talk about. And I think it's something that is quite a bit lacking in today's anime fandom, I guess, or just in fandoms in general, and just people in general. I think more and more we're stepping away from context and judging things in a void. Now, I don't think this is some mysterious social illness that's spreading around. I think it's pretty obvious, right? Taking clips are being taken out of context, and through TikTok, YouTube Shorts, whatever you want, even the news, taking things out of context and having your sound bites, things like that, are very popular, right? And it's how a lot of people learn about different things. The problem is that over time, they learn to subconsciously ignore the idea of context itself, and they just learn to take all things in a void. This happens a lot in anime and anime discussions and forums. You see people talking about these bland characters, but not really talking about the stories in which they exist in. One example for me of a story that I find quite dear to my heart is My Hero Academia. On its surface, someone like All For One, the main antagonist of the story, is a fairly uninteresting character. In fact, I would argue that Horikoshi wrote him explicitly to be uninteresting in the context of modern villains. He is a villain through and through, right? He is unapologetic, he is unempathetic, and he is unsympathetic. He does not have a tragic backstory, at least not a blatant one. There is not a single scene in the entire show where there is sad music playing over something that's happening to him. He is ugly on the inside and the outside. And he is proud of it. A lot of people ended up being angry that All For One ended up taking the spotlight from Shigaraki, who seemed to be a much more interesting antagonist. Namely, Shigaraki has a lot of tragic backstory, right? He has friends in the other villains around him. He's an outcast of society and trying to destroy society for its shortcomings and for basically failing him and the people around him. That seems to be much more engaging because it's more nuanced than someone like All For One. And I don't think that's wrong. But it's taken out of context. Once you put All For One and Shigaraki in the context of My Hero Academia, you'll find that they both perform equally valid and equally necessary roles in the story as antagonists. My Hero Academia is a story about legacy, right? About passing the torch and about spreading the weight of society that's been held up by one pillar that's slowly crumbling, and spreading that weight and that pressure over countless pillars of an entire generation. The idea of you're next, tsugi wa kimi da, next it's your turn. It's something that was brought up from All Might to Deku, and eventually Deku to the rest of the people around him. But I think the end of the story implies that the you're next after that is from My Hero Academia to our world. It's our turn now. Now that Horikoshi has told his story, it's our turn to take our lessons from the failings and that led to the story of My Hero Academia and try to better our own society. And All for One is the perfect antagonist for the story because he is very explicitly anti legacy. Rather than leaving a legacy, rather than passing the torch, he intends to reach out and swipe the torch from the next generation, right? He literally tries to possess the future generation, Shigaraki, and take over his body. He is not willing to pass the torch. He clings to life. He clings to continuing on his own legacy rather than letting the next generation carry on with it. In that sense, he's the perfect antagonist for MHA, far better than Shigaraki could be, even though Shigaraki is incredible in his own right, again, pointing out the issues of society. On top of that, speaking of Shigaraki, All for One actually embodies an even more perfect antagonist than just clinging greedily to his own legacy. He also notices the failings of society that Shigaraki embodies and weaponizes it. There are minor spoilers for the final arc of My Hero Academia, but it turns out that Shigaraki was effectively molded by All for One. At the same time, All for One's plans completely depended on society overlooking Shigaraki, Tenko Shimura, after he killed his family. If somebody had taken Tenko in, All for One's plan would have fallen apart. He would have had to go a completely different route and probably make himself known because he would have had to personally intervene. But he knew nobody would do that because that was the main failing of society. Everyone depending on All Might. Somebody else will take care of it. All Might has a safe. We don't have to do anything. All for One counted on that fundamental flaw of society, and it played out exactly as it always would have, basically. He correctly predicted how society would react to something. He weaponized the main critiques MHA is placing on society and telling us that we need to address. And if that's not a perfect antagonist, I don't know what is. But only once you start looking in the context of the story, right? Outside of the context of My Hero Academia and its specific themes, All for One is a pretty bland villain. He's an unsympathetic, uncaring, unapologetic piece of shit. And while there is place for that in other stories outside of MHA, it's a lot less engaging than someone like Shigaraki, fundamentally. It's only once you place it in the context of its story that its true brilliance shines. And it's with that long-winded side discussion about My Hero Academia and a pre-prep about Jujutsu Kaisen that I want to return back to this comment. Yuta is a pretty bland protagonist. He's a character who focuses on love, who tries to find confidence in himself and ends up becoming a badass. Yeah, it's pretty bland, right? Especially for a protagonist, who Yuta was in JJK 0. But once you look in the context of JJK, a story that systematically and repeatedly crushes any optimism, any hope, any love, any of the tropes that make people fall in love with shonen generally, it completely kicks them down into the dirt and laughs at them, right? Yuta is punished for trying to take responsibility, trying to save people, and trying to hold on to his ideals in a cynical world. He is punished badly in it, in the Shibuya incident, and now he's reeling from it in the Culling games. Love is not this grand thing. The power of friendship does not prevail. The power of ego prevails. The power of selfishness. Mei Mei is perfectly fine and is fully successful, despite her, let's say, unique personality, whereas our boy Nanami is not. This is not a story that rewards good morals, that rewards moral compasses, that rewards everything that we have been led to believe is good in a person. And I'm not here to say that JJK is right and that these things are not good, that we've been brainwashed. You could make that argument. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to point out that Yuta represents all of those things. And yet, JJK is unable to break him down. He ends up being this incredibly powerful sorcerer. He ends up being one of the strongest characters in the story. He sacrifices Rika and basically releases her in the end of JJK 0 in his triumphant battle against the antagonist, right? Against Geto. And yet now he still has her, and he's a special grade who, despite wanting to be executed by the superiors, was actually enlisted by them to be an executioner. He's defying JJK and winning at every turn. And yet he represents all the things JJK seems to despise. And that's what makes him so interesting, right? He doesn't belong in this story. He shouldn't be as successful as he is, according to JJK's internal logic. But rather than this be a thematic inconsistency, it's very clearly intentional, and it's very clearly trying to point at something. Gege's clearly trying to tell us something with this. I don't think we necessarily need to know what it is. I think that we should be paying attention to this. And as a result, I am going to pay attention to it because he's absolutely right. Yuta should not belong here. And I think his introduction in season 3 kind of shows that. And you can see right here, right? It's my thumbnail picture that I use for my JJK season 3 reactions. This moment where we meet Yuta from Yuji's perspective, he is this imposing, cold, detached executioner, right? He's an assassin. He obliterates Yuji and never so much as shows a single emotion. He's foreign because he is foreign to the world of JJK. JJK was unable to crush him like it did Yuji. He's maintained everything, including his status as one of the most powerful sorcerers around, as a special grade. And he even kills Yuji. But that's not really him, is it? The very next episode, when they're around the fireplace, Yuta breaks down his facade and smiles in great relief that Yuji is alive. And everything we've seen from him since supports that. He's the same person we knew in JJK 0. Jujutsu Kaisen, as a story, failed to break down Yuta. And that is brilliant. That is a brilliant inconsistency towards the thematic underpinnings of your own story, something I haven't really seen before in a story. I've never seen a story build out such a internally consistent moral underpinning, tear down all these things that other shonen raise up and put on a pedestal, and then have a character in the foreground who defies all of that. That's so interesting. And it once again shows that Gege is not afraid to be experimental. He's not afraid to go against the grain. He's not afraid to go against his own grain. And I'm really excited to see where that goes. I hope we get to see more of Yuta sooner rather than later, as he goes around, and I believe he's getting the point so they can change the rule, because he's the most okay with killing people and the most capable of killing the other players in the culling game. So yeah, I'm really excited to see where that goes. I'm curious which direction we'll go with this episode. Whichever one we do, it's going to be phenomenal, because this show, this writer, Gege Akutami, has proven himself time and time again to be not only competent, but ready to break the mold and to give people a fantastic time every step of the way. So I'm not going to waste any more of either of our times, and we're just going to see what he presents with us next. Now, one last thing before we get into the episode, and this one's important, I promise. You're probably watching this on YouTube. I don't think this spiel is going to be on Patreon if not, but on Patreon is my unaltered reactions, both visually and a little bit of auditory from here and there, just to avoid copyright, which is going to be on YouTube. I do have the full reaction either way, because I think part of my analysis, my live analysis, is live during the episode, so I don't want to leave that for you. But if you want the full experience of like watching the episode with no visual filter, no audio distortions, that's on Patreon for $2 a month. You get access to all my shows. And also bonus points on Patreon, blah, 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 Discord. But Discord's for free, by the way. So I'll talk about more of that YouTuber housekeeping after the episode, though. I can't wait for this. So we're just going to hop into Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3, Episode 7. And we are starting with a slow zoom in of a TV screen. Oh, we also met Kashimo, which apparently people are incredibly excited for. And this is Geto's voice, right? And this is somebody who's been invited into the culling game. Yeah, I had a feeling I recognized that voice. Old execution site.
半径5、6キロってとこかな。かなり無理をして作った結界だからね。あまり理不尽な条件付けはできないんだ。初めから結界の内側にいる君たちには結界を出る権利がある。一度だけね。
Right, people are given the opportunity to leave the
目が覚めたら結界の
barriers,
外
the
さ。
I forget they're called, the territories,
どうする？
目が覚めたらってこれは夢なの？
which presumably makes the berries even stronger.
まじないさ。
As most things in JJ could go give and take, right? If you give them a stipulation that allows them to leave, it probably makes the actual berry itself stronger.
外にはもう木の
And also makes it easier to make. Because obviously the culling game is this insane complex web of vows that allows it to be this self-regulating system. So I'm sure he cut corners where he could just to make it reasonable. This is a really interesting scene though, the complete lack of background with like the spotlight. Also both of them wearing the blue with the blue light. It's very blue coded, and that's why, because the outside is red.
そうだ。言い忘れるところだった。
Okay.
息子と仲良くしてくれて。
Musko. I assume that's Brain talking. We don't know who this is, right?
よかった知ってるやついて
Thanks, sir.
どこ？
高等台と広瀬通りの間くらいだ
Why am I in my
どう見
pajamas?
るよ岡犬として
どう？
Hmm? Sendai Colony, that's what they were called. That's right. Oh,
夢の話していい？
is that
みんな知ってるよ
is that the barrier? Just
の男だろ
じゃあ
a wall of
いくつもされた？
nothingness?
息子がどうのって。
いやそれは初耳だ
Oh, Musko, that was him talking from his perspective of Yuji's mom. Tokyo #1 Colony Part 1. Okay. Interesting. And I can't wait to talk more about this opening, like do a full deep dive in one of my live streams. There'll probably be one that happens after I finish the season, but this whole like one thing I noticed when I first watched it was this like tower that's building up. And I was thinking like it's something that's gonna happen in the story, but I'm thinking less and less that that's the case. I think what it is the like peering microscope thing that Ghetto, that Brain uses to look down at the city. He's looking down at this like model city, and then the actual city we see like this giant like tower building up, and it's probably the thing that he's looking down, right? If so, that's really cool. And then also like at the end of the episode, at the end of the opening, we have that like bomb blowing and exploding, turning into that hole, like opening up the top of the tower that he's like looking through. It's really cool, and I kind of hope that isn't actually hinting at something that's gonna happen. And he's getting filled in. Cool. Still can't really believe it, but I don't think you have much of a choice. Oh, yeah. Don't tell me this is the first they're hearing of it too. Oh, this is... You just lost another person. Yeah. Oh, but he's more worried about parkour pandas. I'm included in the Daijoubu.
俺たちは何も言えねえよ
Hmm.
にしても世話になった人らが
Yeah, it's hard to accept.
こんなにへこんだ
Yago's
ヤックルのケツに
such a good guy.
刺さった時以来だよ
Yackle.
いい人生送ってるな。
分かった死滅回遊の平定には
Cool.
協力する
Got him fully on
勘違
board.
いすんなよ情に流されたわけじゃねえ
But he doesn't seem to be interested or participating in the game, so I wonder if there's someone else here.
お前らが俺に協力すんだぞ
呪術規定の改定に一丁噛みしよってんだろ
Though I guess you don't have to be a part of a colony, right? Maybe it's just appearing because they're inside of the location of a colony. Because the players have to like gather inside of these different colonies. they don't necessarily form around players,
そ
I
こま
don't
で
think.
難しくはないと思いますよ。
てめえに何がわかんだよ。ふにゃたまこれ。
That's just his official nickname, I guess.
全員家投手です。
I'll use it where I can. There is some prestige to it, but
そう。
also the Zhang clan isn't in a great place right now.
マジか。二人には悪いが今日一ビビったぜ。御三家がバックにつけば規定の海底に口出しなんて超
What is Kirara thinking? Just looking to see his reaction.
ファイトクラ
Her
ブの運営にい
face.
かに全員家を関わらせないかだな。ふにゃたま。
Hmm.
伏黒です。
シグロ君。仲良くしようね。
And he's going full simp. Yep. Okay, so this is right before that happened.
コロニーの割り振りだな。ユータ宮城だっけ？
Oh, that's great. So do they know the locations of the colonies already? Is this what we saw last episode, or is this another one? Okay, it is the same one. Yep. That Kashimo added. He was born 400. He was talking about 400 years ago, so he clearly seems to be in a Kogane. Lies him. Yeah, Kashimo is a different time as Sukuna, so 400 years is opposed to like 1,000 years. Okay, so he's for Yuji.
そういや、天元様が言ってたな。いや、おかしいだろ。なんで虎杖がもうプレイヤーとしてカウントされてんだ。
I have to assume because this is a colony, right?
呪物を配られたやつ以外は、コロニーに侵入して初めてプレイヤーになるはずだろ。
I think that can only leaves one option.
呪物を取り込ませた呪物は1000年前からの契約を交わしたのは術師だけじゃない。
そいつは実在した人間だよ。1000年以上前の話だけどね。
スクナだ。
スクナ？
スクナも賢弱と契約して呪物になった術師の一人だったんじゃねえかな。
Huh.
死滅回遊への参加が契約に含まれてるのか。
Interesting. So he qualifies. If so.
スクナの指はお前の意思で取り込んだろ。俺が証人だ。
And
後にしよう。虎杖、早速小金にプレイヤーの情報を出させてくれ。
小金、できる。
oh, look at that. Oh, cute little graphics.
こいつだこいつ。
Old school video game
もとも
stuff.
と200点も持ってたのか。どういう意図でのルール追加だ。
少なくとも40人は殺してるやつってことだろう。
He's got a lot of points.
でもこれで俺たちは人を殺さずに死滅回遊を進められるかもしれない。小金、得点が100以上のプレイヤーだけリストアップできるか。
俺は虎杖裕二についてるからな。
He has to
ああ、
ask.
いいよいいよ。伏黒の言うことは聞いて。
積み木のよう
That's so
な
cute.
巻き込まれた人間は焦って結界から出たがらない限り、受肉した過去の術師も各々思惑があって賢弱と契約しただけで
Yeah.
必ずしもモチベーションが高いわけじゃない。カシモのように点を持て余しているやつがまだいるとしたら、
そっか。100点以上持っててルール追加をする気がないやつ。そいつ
People
を
who
乗せて。
are
積み木が回遊を抜けるルールを作らせる。
interesting. That way we don't have to kill them ourselves.
もう一人。
But those people will
ま
mainly
ずはレッ
be
クのルール8を
ones who are killing people, so they probably have a
ルール8
reason.
ってなんだっけ？
19日以内にポイントの変動がない場合、術式を剥奪、死に至るルールです。
Yeah.
そこで
Easiest way to strip someone of their technique.
プレイヤー間でのポイントの譲渡を可能にする。
Oh,
これで身内でポイントを
interesting.
回し続ければ、術式を剥奪されて死ぬことはなくなる。できればもう一つ、
Hmm.
ポイントを消費して死滅回遊から離脱できるといったルールを追
It's
加
like
する。
having two credit cards and switching money between the two so that they don't become inactive.
俺もそう思います。でも、非プレイヤーを死滅回遊に引き込む身代わり条件を盛り込めばいけるかもしれません。
Oh,
確かにな。
Indiana Jonesing
その
it.
辺は小金が決めんのか。
何にせよやることは決まったな。
ああ、獄門教の封印を解ける天使を探しながら、
Who can apparently dispel
カ
techniques.
シもはじめと、日車ひろみを
Yudama Hirugumi. Okay, so that was the other person they found. I didn't catch the name, it was too
やっぱり
fast.
ねえな。 天使。
本名じゃないんだろう
Of course
お
not.
前の少なみたいな。
天元様は東京の東側第二コロニーにいるって言ってたな。
なりは分かってんのか。
見ればわかるそうです。
大丈夫かそれ。まあいいや。俺とパンダが東京第二、伏黒君と虎杖が第一、キララは結界外で待機。でいいな。
根拠は
得点だけ見れば一番強い樫本俺がやんのが順当だろ。
私仲間外れ
Mhm.
パンダは鼻が利くから天使探しに注
These are fun shots, like behind the back shots, giving these nice little rotations too.
外の状況を把握できるやつはいた方がいい。
はーい。
待って。
Hey, Messenger's a very
俺と
important
伏
role,
黒は
okay?
別の方がいいかも。少ながまた。
うるせえ。
うるせえ。
先輩たち3人の役割は動かせない。わがまま言うな。
わがまま。こっちは心配してやってんだろ。
お前それ毎回言うつもりか。
It's nice to see he's also coming back.
何の無駄だ。
Because Yuji's still Yuji.
喧嘩すんな。
Cog or not.
よー、俺は小金。
7.5 days
この
left.
世界の中では死滅回遊って殺し合いのゲームが開催中だ。
Oh, does it actually warn you? Interesting.
プレイヤー。それでもお前は中に入るのかい？
Oh, are those what we're building up?
問題ない。
The barriers to the colonies?
ちょっと甘い。絶対あいつ待ってんだけど。
あ、いや、そう言われましても、誰か来ないことには俺にはどうしようも。
Don't think we know this Amai.
何あんた。口答えすんの？
Nor do we know who she is.
すみません。
You're like siblings?
あんま舐めてる
Whoa!
と殺すわよ。
警戒すべきは受肉した
Rocket head!
俺もそう思ったぜ。説明してくれたぜ、伏黒君。
1000年前の連中もいる。
Mhm.
100年や200年でも命の価値が今とまるで違う。しかも術師
The
だぜ。
value of life was
戦って
different,
死ぬの
huh?
は当たり前。戦って死ぬ
Yeah, because they didn't live in times of
なんな
peace.
らそのために賢者と契約したのかもな。
Wars, a lot of them knew.
術師の可能性が高い。まともな交渉は期待するな。
あと好戦的なのは呪霊か。
特に夜はな。積み木と同じ巻き込まれた現代人の術師ならむしろ積極的に情報交換できると思う。
Yeah, and we can talk to them on more equal front because we both grew up in the same society, basically. The same era, if you would. The way it just like flies around. Very mascot-esque. There's something unsettling about its design.
いい。必要ない。
Fushiguro's in.
まずは火車の情報収集だ。
A little bit of personality from them too.
おう。
Okay, let's see what we got. So it teleports them somewhere randomly? One of 9 designated locations. One's just in the fucking sky. That's interesting. So if you're like chasing somebody, yeah, spawn camping. So if you're like being chased by somebody, and there's Rocket Head, if you're being chased by somebody, you can like run into the barrier and basically escape from them that way, or at least get away to have a better chance of getting away from them.
大抵のやつはこれでミンチになるのにピンピンしてる。ただものじゃないわ。
Oof. Had vertigo for a second.
合流しましょう。
Oh, darling. Never mind, not siblings.
起きたな。
Hopefully.
火車のこと聞かねえと。そしたら伏黒探さねえと。
Oh my god, she... Oh, who is... Oh, this is the darling, okay.
聞けばいいか。
I guess they're just a family of... family of aeronautics. Aeronomics,
どこかで。
aviation.
虎杖。
You recognized him? Oh, it's this girl. I don't know who this is, but I mean, she's in the opening.
くそ想定外のはぐれ方をした。
Hmm.
ヌエでも見つけられない。このコロニーは渋谷よりずっと広い。多分2キロ以上離れているな。でも目指す場所は決まってる。火車という術師を知っているか？
男って女は殴れば何でも言うこと聞くと思ってるよね。
答えろ。
はい、すみません。火車ってあいつでしょ？
She actually
100点
complies.
取ってる。
どこにいるかわかるか？
なるほど。そういうことね。
What an unusual expression. Dang. I mean, Yuji's no stranger to aerial fights now, right? We saw it in the first episode. Not a lot of fighting against people, though. Sliding between the propellers? What in the world? He does have exceptional physical strength. This looks so ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know how I'd feel about having a power like that. I mean, he's using propeller for a lot of different... Being quite versatile with his uses, but like, there are so many weaknesses to that. He's lucky Yuji's not actually trying to kill anyone, otherwise I feel like this fight would be over a lot faster. Okay, well that's just unnecessarily violent. Punch the middle. Yeah.
俺ごとビルをぶち抜く強度がありながらあの程度の投擲で落ちた。お前ら術式の基軸の頭圧から離れるほど強度が落ちるんだろう。縛りか。だがどんなに硬かろうが頭は頭。攻撃さえ届けば勝ち割れる。
Oh. and the momentum knocking him around. That's great. You're bleeding from the head, man. Far away from his head. It's just a little bloody. Come on. Stop being so melodramatic.
言ってみろ。
言ってくだ教えてくだ
Kuda.
はい。
はい。
私のナイトになって。
分かった。それでいい。
It's just immediately because he's pushing good. Why would he care? She's trying so hard to play around with him. I love her already.
ナイトって命がけで私を守んのよ。
She has quite the personality. Yeah, don't really have any reason to believe you yet. Oh? Yeah, this is the other guy. Why do you know him?
嘘だったらわかるな。俺は虎杖とは違う。
Yeah.
自分で100点取ってもいいんだ。
I'm a man of the shadows. Remi. Oh, that's a different expression. Okay, so Yuji doesn't seem to recognize him either. Famous. Oh. Small world.
過去の術師じゃなかったのか。
はあ？私そんなに時代遅れに
A little bit.
積極的に戦う理由は何だ？
あのね、非プレイヤーの一般人はコロニーから出してもらえたみたいだけど、初めからコロニーの中にいたプレイヤーはね、死滅回遊に参加して今日で12日目よ。
Can't leave.
私だってやりたくてやってんじゃないの。やらなきゃやられるの。
やらなきゃやれる。
戦う理由を探してる間に殺される。12日もいればそれくらいわかるわ。 その過程で力に溺れてくやつも見たわ。過去のだ現代のだで考えるのはやめることね。
過去の術師に触発されて現代の術師も戦闘モードってわけか。いたどり余計なこと言っちまったな。
いいのか、仲間だったんだろあの二人。
俺はただのパシリだよ。そのうち殺されてたさ。
待て。いい加減どこに向かっているのか教え
Why
ろ。
do I feel like these two are going towards the same
言っ
place?
たらその後あんたが私を殺さない保証がないでしょ。
そうか。
甘いだ。甘いリン。
つく前にお前が死んだらどうすんだ。
だからあんたが守るんでしょうが。あとお前って呼ぶな。
万が一があるだろう。
Her voice changing.
火車はどこにいるんだ。
There's this tension that's building up. Oh yeah, the shots have been equal are now splitting.
物資が豊富だからな。
Something's building up.
池袋。
新宿。
Yeah, they're definitely working together. That was really fun playing with the two parallels. And not having them line up perfectly, it actually makes it even more, builds up even more tension that they're not just, that they're saying it one right after the other, rather than them just both saying it simultaneously. So interesting. I love how much the show loves playing with the contrast of blue and red. I mean, even as far back as season 2, right? The first opening where our blue is being so obviously blue, then Shibuya Incident specials being so red. The start of this episode with Geto and that other guy, other person with the blood, with everything being blue, and then the red background of all the monsters, her spirits. Then of course this ED is just very blue and red with the contrast. The red scary outdoors and the jaded blue, I suppose. Even his hand there, like the little bit of blue that's left on his sleeve, with like the rest of the sleeve and his hand just being coated in the blood red. And I'm supposed to not watch these anymore. All right, that was Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3, Episode 7. I really liked it. It was, whereas the first kind of arc of this season felt more like an introduction to the Culling games, this really felt like an initiation into it, both for us and for the characters. Because before this, we haven't had a whole lot, right? We haven't really had a whole lot of actually going into the Culling game. We've had talks about the Culling game. We've had talks about what we're going to do in it. But the Maki obliterating the Zane clan was more preparation, right? Perfect preparation, if you would. There wasn't really a lot about the Culling game. There wasn't really any of it because the Zane clan wasn't really participating in the Culling game. Neither was Hakari, evidently. The player that the Kogane appeared around was apparently Yuji, which makes sense. It's interesting that we're using Geto's connection to Sukuna to imply that Sukuna was also one of the cursed spirits, I suppose. One of the old sorcerers who contracted with Geto for becoming cursed objects. Because that is kind of what happened to him, right? Which kind of has some interesting implications, but I'll get to that soon enough when we get to that in the episode. Let's take things as we always do, where we get this open on this this very small center expanding screen that eventually we overlap actually with Geto as he's looking over this person who we haven't met before. Sorcerer who erected the barrier here has been chosen for a place to kill people in. There's no real honor in it. Could you please not do it where I live? This place isn't exactly the most peaceful place. It's centered around an execution site. Went through great pains to create the barrier, so I can't impose unrealistic impositions on it, which means those who were inside from the start have the right to leave it. Just once. This is interesting. If you wish, you could wake up outside the barrier. And I think that's what he does, right? That's why he wakes up like in the middle of the city. It's really interesting. Later, we see another new character we met, Remi, who mentions that she can't leave the barrier. I wonder if that means when she entered accidentally without realizing it and now is trapped inside? Or is he only referring to people who are not players? There's probably clarification in the rules, and I'm just forgetting, but we may even get it later in this episode, so I'm going to hold off on that for now. But yeah, I love the subtle setup for what we're about to see as the background opens up with all these different shades of blue, right? Geto with his darkish, almost purpley blues, the very light sky blue of these pajamas, and then just the blue light around them. Perfectly setting up the immediate tonal whiplash of the blood red everything else around them with all these cursed spirits around who are just wreaking havoc. Thanks for being friends with my son, Sasaki. That is not the same person as Amai that we saw later. So he woke up outside the barrier, right? Oh, this just edge of the universe. So I think the point of this is that a lot of people are being sort of introduced to Yuji Itadori. Because this guy and also Amai seem to know him, even though Yuji doesn't seem to know them, or at least he doesn't know Amai. Amai mentions that it's because of they were in the same school and he was kind of known there, but it seems like Brain might be telling people about Yuji. I guess as as Yuji's mom in a sense. Thank you for taking care of my son. So we cut into this with the super cute hand-drawn flowers, just really playing up the anime tropes of enhancing the reaction of the characters, right? So everyone learns about Yaga, which is absolutely terrible. Don't worry, it's not your fault. That's so sweet of Parkour Panda. I absolutely adore the fact that that's the first thing he says after he mentions that the principal's dead. He immediately goes to not just consoling him, like, it's okay, he died with a smile, or he's in a better place right now. Nothing simple like that. He immediately locks onto the fact that Yuji is going to be concerned and feel especially guilty if he thinks that the principal, if Yaga died in Shibuya, because odds are he would have died because of Yuji. At least in Yuji's mind, right? So it's very empathetic and very considerate of Parkour Panda to immediately follow up with, indirectly, albeit, it's not your fault. He didn't die in Shibuya. He was killed by the higher-ups. But Yuji responds that that doesn't make it better because everyone is just super considerate here and it's super wholesome. Yuji is more worried about how Parkour Panda feels. I'm not worried about my guilt. I'm worried about the fact that you lost your father, in a sense, in a potentially literal sense. But Parkour Panda is okay. Or at least all right. Daijobu. He says he's okay, so it's not really our place to say he's not, right? That goes for anyone in shows or in real life. You don't really get to tell people whether they are okay or not. If they've lost a loved one, they say, it's all right, or I'm all right, then that's all right. Whether they actually are or not doesn't necessarily mean they are just because they say it, but either way, it says that I either don't really want to talk about it, or I'm not ready for that right now. Either way, it's inconsiderate to push it. As much as we want to be helpful, and as much as I feel like there's, especially for people like me at least, who have like suffered through depression, suffered through putting up a facade, putting up a front to try to not burden others with our problems. People like me who have gone through that tend to see people who are suffering, who are putting up walls and saying, I don't want to talk about it, or I'm fine, and immediately call their bluff, right? And perhaps correctly so. We want to push and say, like, no, you're not all right. I want to help you because I've been through something like that before. But it's a little bit arrogant, isn't it? If they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to talk about it. One thing that a lot of shonen push that I think is detrimental is that main character syndrome. The idea that I can affect the world, I can change people's lives, even if they don't wish it. A lot of shonen protagonists go out of their way and are rather insensitive and say, like, no, you're not okay. I'm going to try to help you. And a lot of times it works out, but in real life, it rarely does like that. If somebody doesn't want you to intervene, you should respect that. Regardless of whether they're okay or not, whether they're telling the truth or not, you need to respect their feelings because you do not have a duty and you probably don't have the ability to save them against their will. because their will is what matters, right? They're an individual person. If they're ready to open up, if they want to open up, then they will. The best thing you can do is say, I'm here for you if you ever need me. That's the best response here, right? Okay, you say you're all right, then okay. But if you ever need me, if you ever need a shoulder to cry on, someone to talk to, I am always here and it would be my pleasure to talk to you. I want to help you. And then leave the ball in their court. Because if you don't, right, if you decide to help them against their will, even if it works out, even if you help them, then you are silently taking away their agency. You are secretly telling them that they are not able to solve their own problems. They are not able to approach help and they are dependent on somebody else. Whereas if you wait for them to come up to you and say, hey, can we talk about something? That was their initiation. That encouraged their agency. It's just hard, and it's hard to think about, and it's hard to accept because we want to help people, and walking away feels like not helping them. But it's the best thing to do oftentimes. And you just have to hope and have faith that they will open up when it's time. Or if they don't even need it, then maybe they won't. But that's up to them, right? That's part of free will, part of being able to do what you want. It's great to be considerate, but anything in excess is bad, right? The dose makes the poison. So Hakari agrees to join us, but on a condition. Once we clean up the colon game, it's your turn to help me. Parkour Panda effectively calls out that Hakari just wants to have his own say in the revisions of the rules, basically. And he doesn't seem to deny it, so it seems to be the case, but whether or not it is, it seems like he gets distracted by Sea Urchin Head, the head of the very functional and very intact Zane clan, at least for the next day. And I love this little note here. We have this a couple times throughout the episode, but here it's like, obviously he doesn't like it, he doesn't want to be a part of it, but it's still a useful tool, and Megumi is nothing if not resourceful, right? What a great expression. What a great stance. And there's a whole lot of Kirara just being super surprised this whole episode, and it's really cute and really, I'm not entirely sure why. This is just a great screenshot. Hold on, gonna keep that. Don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but and then here too, as he's like thinking about and deliberating, this is super cute how Kirara just like sneaks up, just walks up behind him, just holds over him. That's the most shocking thing I've learned. Part of the same clan. If I get the backing of one of the 3 big families, it'll be great. Yeah, and then he just turns into complete suck-up mode. Fushiguro-kun! Doing whatever he can to get on Fushiguro's good side, which is... I don't know if that's really possible, but you know what? Can't knock a man for trying, I suppose. And then just gets destroyed the next day. Just leaves deciding who's heading to which colony. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. And then we get into what we did last episode with the new rule and the Kogane, the personal liaison to Itatori Yuji. This is a really cute shot that I didn't quite notice before. He comes down and he's like spinning around. And the next shot is him still spinning around, but us like being attached to him. So it looks like everyone else is spinning as he's like turning, but we're like just staying stuck on him. It's just a cute little way of showing that. There's a whole lot of directorial little quirks here throughout this episode, throughout the season, really. It's something I've mentioned, I'm pretty sure, every single episode, but only because it's worth mentioning. Oh, jeez, and then Scuda appearing behind him, and then switching over. Ooh, so cool. But it's a really interesting implication that Sukuna is somebody who forged a pact with Brain and then became a cursed object. Because I don't think we've actually ever heard or seen why or how Sukuna became a cursed object, which is really interesting. The idea that it could have been because of his pact with Kenjaku, so he basically became a cursed object to be absorbed, I guess, in the future, I think is the implication. There are probably some dots I'm not connecting because my memory is really bad despite the presentation I try to give off in these episodes. You don't see all the research all the time before I record that I'm like going back over previous stuff, but during times like this where I'm doing it live, like you can tell there's a lot of stuff that's like passing over me, which is why the comments are super helpful. So leave your own comment below. If it's really good, I'll bring it up in tomorrow's comment of the day. Little plug in there. But that seems to be the implication here, that he might have become a cursed object after forging a pact with Kenjaku, or perhaps because of it, to participate in the future game, I suppose, for Brain's eventual goal, right, of bring people to the other side. That's really interesting. At least an interesting thing to think about. So they look for Kashimo, who added the rule, and then they find one other person who has a lot of points. Anyone with over 100 points. Kashimo, who has the 100 and a rule, so 200. And then Hiromi Higuruma, who we spend the rest of the episode trying to get information on where they could be. Current colony Tokyo number 1, but Tokyo's pretty big, so that's why they're trying to find information, and they find they hear two different stories, which seems to be intentional. I got a feeling that these two are actually working together in a sense. He's only got 102 points, so not nearly as much as Kashimo. Okay, so I just pulled up the rules of the Culling game just to read over it one more time, and for some reason I was under the impression that everyone starts with 100 points for some reason, but obviously that wouldn't make any sense because that means you could just add a rule. And the whole idea is that non-sorcerers are worth 1 point, right? So you'd have to kill 100 of them, or sorcerers are worth 5. You'd have to kill at least 20 to add a rule. And hence why Kashimo has killed at least 40 people due to this. Well, he's killed 40 sorcerers due to his points. Hiromi Higuruma has 102, which means that either he's killed 20 sorcerers and 2 people, or he's killed some mix of the two, which is a little bit concerning. The fact that he has an even number of, the fact that he has a number of points that are not a multiple of 5, which means he's killed at least some non-sorcerers. That's a little bit concerning, a little sketchy. But he does only have 102 points, which means he hasn't added a rule. And it makes sense that they're looking for people who haven't added rules because it means that they may not be interested in this. They don't have a rule that they'd like to add. Though I suppose Kashimo is a similar way. He got to 200 before he decided to add a rule. But it at least gives them a better chance of negotiating with them because maybe they have their own motivations for participating, right? Rather than trying to win. Though that is a bit of an extension of logic, it is better than nothing, which is why they're looking for him. And then there's also the stipulation that anyone whose points don't change will get out of there. So if they decide that if they can get a rule to change things, then they can just hop between them, and technically their points will keep changing, so they won't be kicked out of the game. And then this is the fun little shot of just hopping between different people's backs, especially when they turn the corner. And Kirara just being super cute. Yuji gets railed for being selfish, or for being selfless, trying to care about Fushiguro, but Fushiguro's Fushiguro. He is, as he mentions later in the episode, not worried about appearances, about being overly kind. And then this is really interesting too. The idea that we should be more wary of people who were born during warring periods, like the Warring States period. These people lived in times of war, not times of peace. So odds are, and these times of war, especially like the Warring States period, lasted many generations, right? So these kinds of people who grew up in these conflicts have fundamentally different ideals. They have fundamentally different beliefs because they grew up in different norms. Even though they're both Japanese, both Yuji, Fushiguro, and people like Sukuna, it's safe to say that they lived in fundamentally different cultures, entirely different cultures almost. Even though one was built on the other, one was of violence and of dog eat dog. The other one is one that is constantly pursuing peace. Or at the very least, acts of aggression are outside of the norm. Here, aggression is the norm. So these two different ways of growing up lead to very different ways of seeing the world and very different perspectives, like on a base level, right? The very idea of like negotiating, of we both get what we want and nobody has to get hurt, is a privileged viewpoint, right? It is the viewpoint of people who are allowed to feel that way, who don't feel like the world is dog eat dog, is kill or be killed. This is a privilege afforded to people who have not spent their lives covered in blood. This is a topic that's also been brought up in Freerin. People who, since the magic in Freerin is very perception focused, it's very much about like visualization and your perception of the world and your place in it. You have some people who are mentioning that they could not have freed the world from the demon lord's grasp because they are creatures of war. They are beings who do not belong in eras of peace. So even if they ushered in an era of peace, it would not truly be peaceful because their fundamental worldview is not one of peace. So they cannot usher in a world of peace. Take someone like Frieren, who is of a peaceful era, like inherently, to actually bring out that world of peace, or at least a world of more peace. And as I think is really cool, these two are the intersectionality of these two shows. It pops up again and again. And here we go. We need to be wary of these people because they are fundamentally different. That does not mean we need to kill them. Obviously, this is not this is not talking about xenophobia, right? People who are different from us are those we need to kill, but we need to be wary because the assumptions we bring to the table are fundamentally different from the assumptions they bring to the table. And that is just something smart to think about. Their first response to most things will probably be attacking, which we kind of see with these other people, which doesn't necessarily mean they're of another era. They might just be sorcerers who like fighting. Yeah, it's something to be wary about because of those fundamental different perspectives. And this is a pretty interesting fight. Not a whole lot to talk about. This girl is really interesting. She's got a whole lot of personalities, I almost want to say. This Remi girl is really interesting. I'm not quite sure what to make of her. And I think that's the point. I think it's supposed to be hard to get a read on her because of how much she's like changing how she reacts to things. This whole men always demand things and beat people up and don't play along. Just hurry up and get to the point. Yes, I'm sorry. But it's kind of like a spiteful one, right? Not a it's not like an obedient one. She's almost playing along, and she is very playful. This is a really also just really cool shot composition. Her like largely being hidden by his leg, with also that really interesting expression. I'm not sure what read to get on her. Helicopter head has an obvious weakness, the middle of the propeller, which is also his head. It doesn't care how reinforced it is. Your head is your head, my man. I'm afraid that's just not a great way to attack. I love this. Kuda, no. Then she tries laying on the charm. He's totally fine, and he doesn't even hesitate because he's Fushiguro. Of course. I'm not like you. I am more than willing to get the points on my own. So Remi mentions that players who were in the colony from the start have had to participate already. I guess they couldn't leave. Only non-players were allowed to leave. And I didn't see that in the rules, at least not when I was looking it up just now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure. I mean, I imagine they can leave because otherwise everyone would be trapped in their colonies. They wouldn't be able to go between them. There must be something I'm missing. Or maybe, again, this is intentional to kind of throw us off, to seem kind of odd, because there's a lot odd about her. And we've got these two parallels, these two walking around, turning these corners in these streets, both talking. And then this whole bit of her getting frustrated without us seeing her face. And with oh my God, the framing of so many of these are great. And then we make it perfectly clear. We make it explicit, these parallels. As both of them ask Remi and Amai respectively where Higuruma is. I love this. I love this how the divider like slides in. It doesn't just appear after a different shot. There's just so much fun happening here. Shinjuku and Ikebudo, and she's got quite a face on her. Oh, again, hidden by the pole, much like how she was hidden by the leg before. There's a lot of hiding parts of her face, which is it fits very well with her different expressions, with her different, I don't want to say personalities, but the different ways she's presenting herself. You really can't tell what she's about, which is really interesting. I do imagine we're going to get more of that next episode, obviously, because we kind of ended off on a cliffhanger here. It does seem like these guys are working together. I've got a sneaking suspicion that I know she was in the opening with like 3 other people. I think 2 of them were with helicopters. I wouldn't be surprised if he was there too. If so, that pretty much confirms it. Or maybe they were just in a group because they're in this colony. But this clear, I mean, the odds that they just happen to give different they happen to give different stories of where this guy is that we're trying to find. It's beyond coincidental, right? This is clearly some sort of deception, especially with the expression on her face. And his face is just deadpan, so we have no idea what Amai's thinking, but I'm really interested. I'm really excited. If you're excited as well, go ahead and subscribe to get notified whenever the next one drops. I swear it won't be 2 weeks again. I've been busy with quite a bit of stuff, but I'm going to try to get back into it. Uh, at least several videos a week. We'll see how it goes, but I'm going to try to ramp back up now. My environment also will be changing soon as I kind of move locations where I'm living, so bear with me through that. But I appreciate you being patient. If you did enjoy the content, though, again, please do like. It really helps me out. It shows the algorithm that you're engaging with it and that you enjoyed it. And it also shows me that you're enjoying it. So, yeah, it just good vibes all around. If you want to be featured in the next comment of the day, go ahead, leave your comment. I read every single one. If I've hearted it, I've read it. And if I really like it and I want to talk about it, then I'll bring it up in the comment of the day next episode. So look forward to that. I hope to see you down there. And finally, of course, Patreon, unaltered reactions, bonus votes for polls, and also a link to my Discord, which I have a Discord now, by the way. In case you don't watch my update videos, which I don't blame you, I have that too sometimes. I have a Discord now. It is called the IPPC, the International Paragraph Production Committee, and it's open to everyone for free. However, it is on my Patreon for free. You just have to join as a free member, and then you can get in. This isn't necessarily like a trap or anything. There's no ulterior motives. It's simply that I don't want a link to my Patreon being like in a publicly accessible place. I want to at least have something so that we don't just get random people joining in there. I want these to be people who are curated and actually care about being a part of this community. So yeah, if you want to go ahead, join Patreon, and click that link for that Discord access. There's a lot of fun things that happen there, and I hope to see you there. But regardless of where I see you, until the next one, have a lovely rest of your day.